Welcome to Season 3 of On the Spot at PCC, your go-to source for what's happening around Portland Community College. We're diving into some big changes and new spaces, from the academic affairs restructure, updates in PSEC, to goats and guide dogs, and everything in between. Stay tuned. We're bringing you the stories that shape our work, our students, and our future right here on the spot.
In this episode, we are reporting for duty at the Sylvania campus Veterans Resource Center, where a 20-pound Labradoodle named Bob is making a big impact on campus. He's more than just a mascot. Bob is a trained therapy dog providing joy, comfort, and emotional support to PCC's veteran students. I'm your host, Danielle Gabriel, the marketing director at PCC. We're talking with Matt Blankenship, Sylvania VRC coordinator, and Bob's human to talk about how this dynamic duo is helping veterans navigate the transition from military to college life, and why sometimes the best support doesn't come with words, but a wagging tail.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this.
How did Bob come into your life, and when did you realize that he was going to be suited for therapy work?
Well, thanks. Yeah, Bob came into my life. He is 3 years old now. I think June is his third birthday. And my wife and I have been guardians for dogs for 10 or 11 years. I can't remember. But so we've been guardians for these dogs. So Bob is in line. He's the third in line. So we have Bob's grandmother, Bob's mother, and Bob, and the whole generation. So that's how he came into our life. It was a thank you from the breeders to us to have Bob, and I wanted a third dog, and I think we got him right at the end of COVID or something along those lines. And she, we were looking at the litter, and she was like, "All right," my wife Christina said. First she said, "No, I don't want a third dog. We have too small of a house, everything." And then we were at the litter, and she walks over. She's like, "If you want the dog, it's going to be this one." So she picked Bob. And that's kind of how he came into my life. How I realized when he would be good for therapy work was really early on. Being a therapy dog it's an art of both training the dog to do certain things because they have to have certain behaviors or not have certain behaviors, but they also have to have this mentality. And Bob is not the first therapy dog we tried. We tried another dog, and that other dog, actually it was Bob's mother, was not a good therapy dog.
Okay.
She lasted a grand total of maybe a day and then did something. It wasn't horrible, but it just didn't work out. Mm-hmm. But I noticed Bob being so loving and kind, affectionate. He rarely, if ever, barks. Man. I know. And so just his demeanor with me and with us and the people around us. I have a number of nephews, so small children, number of family members, and he was always really well behaved with them as well. So I started to notice some things about him before I started this about 2 years ago, because you have to wait through their 6 months.
Okay.
you're not gonna do him as a puppy because they're still doing all the puppy things you don't want them to do. Mm-hmm. And then they have that energy. But anyway, so it was very early on that I noticed that I identified something that was like this. He could be a perfect therapy dog.
The small children behavior in and of itself is a good indicator because that's always a good test for a dog and the owner.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the things is I notice is you give a dog a treat, and sometimes they'll bite your hand or what he doesn't. He very carefully grabs it out of your hand, and so just things like that. He does love you, wants to jump up on you, but
who's going to complain about
who's going to complain about
Labradoodle?
That? But he's very gentle, with other kids, because frankly, we have kids that come into the center too.
Right.
We have all ages of people, and he works well with all of them. So, yeah.
Speaking of therapy dogs, can you differentiate a little bit between, say what the difference between like a service dog and a therapy dog or an emotional support dog might be for people who aren't clear?
Yeah. So I do want to preface this with, I am not an expert. There are people, ADA folks, our ADER department, who are experts on service animals. Now, I did my own research on this. So this is just from my understanding of it, but I look at it in this way. There's really 3 buckets. There's the ESA, which is emotional support animal. And then kind of the next tier up is a therapy dog. And then the kind of the highest tier is a service animal. And there's different requirements for each of them. The ESA, the emotional support animal, is kind of the lowest common denominator. You can get that from you go see a therapist or a counselor, and they can say, oh yes, you need this ESA to do whatever. A lot of people use it to get their dog on a plane and not have to pay, or get their dog into their apartment and not have to pay pet rent or a deposit. In my opinion, it can be a little abused, but so that's like the lowest level. A lot of people mistake ESAs or emotional support animals as service animals.
Right.
I think that there's some real lack of understanding there. So the next one is a therapy dog, which is what I wanted Bob to be. The idea of a therapy dog is where a service animal is really specific to the person. So if I have a disability and I need a service animal, the easiest one is a seeing eye dog. But there are, a lot in the veteran sphere, PTSD is a real thing. So there are service animals for PTSD, and they're trained to detect if you're having an episode, things like that. Wow. But that one dog is specific to me or you, whoever the person is, and they're trained on them and they have to focus on them. They are on the job. Therapy dogs are really there for kind of emotional help, love, and support of multiple people. Whereas it's not just me, it's anyone in the room who wants that. A lot of times they take therapy dogs to hospitals. They take them, Dornbeckers, or like take them to the kid, like the kids area, or even post-disaster, take them down, after hurricanes or floods to help people process trauma. So we have the ESAs, who are kind of emotional support for the one person, therapy dogs, which are emotional support and help for a group of people, which is what Bob is, because there's training that goes behind it. There's a number of groups. The American Kennel Club is the biggest one, the one that comes to mind, but they have, I think it's like the Good Neighbor program, where there are a number of things and tests that you have to go through, or the dog has to go through to become a good neighbor. Part of that is when they're on the leash, are they pulling, or are they just right next to you? How are they being introduced to other people? How do they react when they come and see another person? Do they jump up on them? Do they bark? Do they get aggressive? Do they want to play? Are they willing and able to sit there and stay while you walk out of the room? There's a number of different tests that they have for therapy dogs. And that's the difference, is it's like they're there for love and support, but they're well behaved. So that's the therapy dog. And then there's the service animal, which is, under the ADA legally, if I have a service animal, I can bring them with me to wherever I need to go. It's an aid that helps me get through my day. I think there's a lot of confusion amongst all of those. I think there's a lot of confusion. I just, because I've seen it, I've done some research, and I don't want to take away from, service animals are there for a reason, and a good reason. Bob is not a service animal. He is a therapy dog. I hope that
it does clarify things. Yeah.
and the professionals out there may be going like, no, that's my layman's understanding of the three.
I think that gives everyone a broad enough overview, and if they want to do more research on their own or contact Ada, even, they can totally do that. Yeah. What kind of reactions from students do you see when they interact with Bob?
Oh my goodness. It has really become a phenomenon. So if I can back up a little bit, or just explain how this started, because this started, so it was post-pandemic. We came out of the pandemic, and it was the summer, I want to say 2022. It was the summer we finally reopened, and it was a ghost town here. There were many people that still didn't want to come back, and there was a lot of restrictions on when we could be here and what we could do. Myself and the people that worked in my center, the students that worked in my center, had a desire to come back and to re-engage, rebuild community, and put a pin in that. I'll get to that in a minute. That's really important. So we were looking for ways to draw people in, to have community, to help people get through that anxiety of being around crowds and people, and kind of fell on therapy dog. Like started to look at that as a possibility to help people come through the door and be comfortable there. Because a lot of people would come through the door and still be very anxious, even if it's a crowd of 7 or 8 people, like not being used to that. So that's how this all really started. And it was really focused, because my lens is really, we serve all students, but our, bullseye of the target is really veterans. And that's where I started. So I looked at service animals and said, well, I don't want to do a service animal. What other options are out there? That's when I did this research and found therapy dog. And so I went down that, tried to, went and pursued that path. So does that
yeah,
make
it
sense?
does answer the question.
Yeah.
How long have you been at the Veterans Resource Center?
So I've been around PCC for many years. I started at this Veterans Resource Center at Sylvania in 2019.
Okay.
So August of 2019.
Okay.
Right before the pandemic, I took over, and then March. It was March of the academic year.
Yeah,
we were gone, and then out for 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years until that summer. But I worked here previously. I built the resource center at the Cascade campus back in, I think it was like 2011 to 2014, maybe 2010. Sometime I'm getting to the point where I'm like, what date? But yeah, so I built the first Veterans Resource Center at PCC at the Cascade campus.
Does every campus have a resource center?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, every major campus.
Yeah,
so Cascade, Southeast, Rock Creek, and Sylvania have a resource center. Back in 2011, there were really no resource centers. And then I was a student. I'm actually a student alumni from here. I started in 2005, 2006, something like that. There was none of that when I was here. I mean, we had ASPCC, but that was about it. So, yeah.
Why are spaces like the Veterans Resource Center so important for students?
Well, I love how you put it, students, because one of our focus is really, when I talk to my students, the people that work for me, I use the analogy of a bullseye, right? So what we're really aiming for, the middle of the bullseye, is student veterans, right? People who are at PCC, student veterans. However, there's another group of people who we call them military affiliated, which are dependents of veterans, spouses, kids, and even people who are still in the military. We consider those people. And for us, that's the second rung out of our, if you're like the target you're aiming for. And then the third rung out is any student, anybody who pays into the student activity fee, or anybody who's going to school, that's our target, right? So I love how you say students. Building of community is so important. And I think that's why resource centers in general are so important. Again, we try to build a community with veterans and bring as many people in, or in fact, we reverse it. Is most veterans have told me over the years, they don't want to be identified as, oh, you're the vet, or you're the veteran. They want to get out of the military. That was something that they did back then. They're either, some of them are proud, some of them are not, some of them had a great experience, some of them didn't, but it's something that they are. And now my next thing in life, they're here to kind of find the next thing in life. But they don't want to be solely identified as you're the veteran. So they want to come to college, come to PCC, and be just like any other student. So we try to help them reintegrate, as opposed to kind of draw them separately out and know this is our space and our area. But building the community, right? It is so important. And I found that of all the things that we do, that is the most important thing, is to build community.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you see veterans facing when they're transitioning back into college life? Yeah.
I can tell you from both experience, my personal experience, and then my experience working here, but the loss of community. When I did my master's thesis, I broke it down into three categories: as academic, social, and cultural integration. And academic integration, most people, if you were like me, silly, but when I joined the military, I thought I'd never go to school again, right? You go to school in the military, but it's very different than an academic setting. And if you don't, it's like math. If you don't use math a lot, you lose it. So helping them reintegrate academically. So academic challenges, and it's not necessarily an inability there. It's just you haven't used it in a while, and getting over the stigma of asking for the help. So the academic, the cultural integration, which is really important because the military is its own culture.
Yeah.
PCC, higher ed they're their own cultures and subcultures. And so it's I don't know if you've ever traveled internationally, but going to a different culture, you get a culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happens when you even if you never deployed and never went to combat or never, and many people did, but even if you didn't do that, which is a whole nother step, it's still a culture shock to come here. It's different ways of talking, speaking, different not morals, but more like different values. Thank you. Different codes of ethics and things. And there's friction there a lot of the time. About that. So the cultural integration is really important. But then the social integration as well is when you're in the military, you generally have a pretty robust social circle, even if it's the unit of people you're with. You leave that and that shrinks pretty precipitously. Coming to school is a really amazing way to rebuild that social network. And it's about building that with people who are in the same kind of space in life that you are. And I've found that resiliency is built through, because you're going to have trouble in college. Something's going to happen, whether it be academics, whether it be personal life, whether it be whatever, something's going to happen. And if you have that, I don't want to say safety net, but if you have that net of people, the support structure, you are far more likely to succeed.
Absolutely.
And I'm a data nerd at heart. So I track a lot of things. And so I'm able to say, because I want to be able to say like, hey, does walking in our door make any bit of a difference? But, and it does. You're 10 to 15% more likely to retain term over term and then year over year than you are if you don't walk in the door. That's if you're a veteran or not a veteran, it doesn't matter. That's the numbers that I'm seeing.
And I hear that you guys have the best coffee on campus.
Yes, best free coffee.
Oh yeah, free coffee.
Best free coffee trademarked on campus.
So does this mean that I don't have to go to Starbucks anymore and I can just come in and see Bob and get coffee?
Yes, you could. You could go. Now again, if you pay for it, it's probably going to be better. However,
I see.
Yeah, best free coffee on campus. But it's there. It's open. It's for everyone. And we like it that way because it's really I don't know, use a marketing term. It's a loss leader, right? Like it helps get people through the door. So the whole design of the way we've done it is what draws people into the door, right? And then how do we get them to want to come back? I mean, that's Bob, I think, is a major piece of why people come back. I mean, I have people walk in. Is Bob here? Nope. All right. See ya.
When is Bob in the office?
So right now, and this has been the same, he is there Wednesdays and Thursdays. Every day that I'm there, he is there every week, Wednesday and Thursday. We used to have him there every day, but long story short, he is now, because he's part of he's part of the Bob therapy program. It's part of a program. I mean, there are some restrictions there, like the policy of having service animals on campus and having, regular animals. How we are able to do it is he is part of a therapy program.
Okay.
And the therapy program is Wednesdays and Thursdays from, usually it's the hours that we're open. So, 9 to 4, 9 to 5. He's there for those times, take him for his potty break at noon or whatever. But that's when he is there, Wednesdays and Thursdays. And I'm here year round. So he's here year round on Wednesdays and Thursdays.
To our listeners, thanks for tuning in and all you do to support PCC students.